My son-in-law smirked and spat. I sold all your wife's clocks for Vegas cash. Too bad, old friends. 10 years of her collection gone in a heartbeat. We stood frozen among empty shelves, hearts shattered, when the buyer's call came. Sir, we found something hidden inside one of the clocks. Get here now. We raced over and saw something that made our blood run cold. The trader had no idea his brilliant move had just sealed his own fate. Before continuing, subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is in your region right now. My name is Frederick Wells, but everyone calls me Fred. I'm 68 years old, and I've lived in Philadelphia my whole life. For 40 years, I worked as an auctioneer at Pemberton and Sons, one of the oldest auction houses in the city. You learn things standing at that podium: how to read people, how to spot a fake smile, how to know when someone's hiding something. Those skills served me well in business. I never thought I'd need them at home. I live on Spruce Street with my wife, Vivian. We've been married 45 years. Met her at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. She was 23, fresh out of library school, working in the archives. I was there to appraise an estate collection. She was cataloging a set of Civil War letters, and when she looked up at me, I swear time stopped. Sounds dramatic, but it's true. We were married 8 months later. Vivian is the quiet one. Where I'm all talk and charm, she's thoughtful, precise. She spent 35 years as an archivist at the Museum of American History. Every document labeled, every detail recorded. At home, she's the same. Everything in its place, everything with a purpose. But don't mistake quiet for weak. Vivian has a spine of steel. You just have to know her to see it. 10 years ago, she started collecting antique mechanical clocks. It began when her grandmother passed away and left her a pocket watch from 1887. Vivian fell in love with the craftsmanship, the history. Soon she was hunting through estate sales, auctions, antique shops. She built a collection of 37 pieces, each one documented, photographed, with its own story. A German mantel clock from 1902, a Swiss Patek Philippe from 1895, an American railroad watch that survived a train derailment in 1923. These weren't just objects to her. They were memories, connections to the past. Our daughter Trudy is 35. She was a sweet kid, curious, kind, always making us proud. Then 6 years ago, she met Gordon Pierce at some real estate seminar. He was 32, charismatic, always had a story about his next big deal. Vivian saw through him immediately. There's something off about him, she told me one night after their third date. Give him a chance, I said. Trudy seems happy. She gave me that look, the one that says I'm wrong, but she loves me anyway. They got married a year later. For a while, things seemed fine. Gordon worked as a real estate agent. Trudy did styling consultations at a boutique. But cracks started showing. Gordon's deals never closed. His hours got strange. Then 2 years ago, he temporarily lost his job. They moved in with us. Just until we get back on our feet, Trudy promised. That was 2 years ago. Living with Gordon was like watching a slow-motion disaster. He'd disappear for hours, come back smelling like cigarettes and cheap cologne. Trudy made excuses. I kept my mouth shut, for her sake. But Vivian noticed everything. He's gambling, she said one morning after Gordon left for another job interview. You sure? I found betting slips in the recycling. Atlantic City. He's in deep. She was right. She always is. The past month, Gordon got worse. Nervous, jumpy, taking calls in the backyard at midnight. Trudy became cold, distant. She stopped having coffee with her mother in the mornings, stopped asking how we were doing. Then came that Tuesday morning in April. I was in my workshop restoring a 1920s alarm clock when I heard Vivian scream. Not a startled yelp, a scream of pure shock. I dropped my tools and ran. She was standing in her study, frozen. The built-in shelves along the wall, the ones that had held 37 clocks, were empty, completely bare. Vivian, my heart hammered. She couldn't speak, just pointed at the empty shelves with a shaking hand. I heard footsteps behind us. Gordon walked in, hands in his pockets, that cocky smirk on his face. Looking for something? He asked. Vivian turned to him. Where are they? Where are my clocks? He shrugged. Sold them. Got 12 grand from some collector in Virginia. Not bad for a bunch of old junk, right? The room went silent. Even the house seemed to hold its breath. You sold them? I kept my voice steady, but inside I was shaking. Yeah, Fred, I sold them. He said my name like it was a joke. Needed cash for Vegas. Had a sure thing lined up. Well, he laughed. It was a sure thing? Didn't pan out, but hey, that's gambling, right? Vivian's face went white. Those were mine. You had no right? No right? Gordon stepped closer. Listen, old man. Old woman. You're sitting on all this stuff, all these useless antiques, while I'm drowning in debt. Someone had to be practical. Trudy appeared in the doorway. She looked at her mother, at me, then at the floor. Trudy? Vivian's voice cracked. You knew about this. Our daughter said nothing. Gordon grinned. She's with me on this one, right, babe? Trudy nodded slowly. That nod broke something in Vivian. I saw it in her eyes. Gordon laughed again, that sharp, cruel sound. Come on, you're old. You'll be dead soon anyway. What do you need with a bunch of ticking clocks? I needed that money now. So I took it. He headed for the door, then paused. Oh, and Fred? You were an auctioneer. You should understand. Everything has a price. I just found the right buyer for your wife's little hobby. Then he left. Trudy followed without a word. Vivian stood there, staring at those empty shelves. Then, for the first time in 45 years of marriage, I watched my wife break down and cry. That night was the longest of my life. Vivian locked herself in our bedroom. I stood outside the door for an hour, listening to her sob. Each sound cut through me like glass. I'd seen her weather her parents' deaths, my heart attack 5 years ago, every hardship we'd faced. She'd always been strong, composed. But this destroyed her. Gordon didn't just steal objects. He stole 10 years of memories. Every clock was a story. Our trip to Switzerland for our anniversary, the estate sale where she outbid a museum curator, the railway watch she found the same week I retired. He took our history and turned it into poker chips. Around midnight, she finally opened the door. Her eyes were red, swollen. I want him gone, she said quietly. I know. No, Fred, I mean it. Out of our house. Out of our lives. I pulled her close. She was trembling. We'll figure this out, I promised. The next morning, Gordon came down for breakfast like nothing happened. He made himself coffee, grabbed some toast, whistled while he scrolled through his phone. Morning, folks, he said cheerfully. Beautiful day, isn't it? I didn't respond. Vivian sat at the table, hands folded, staring at him. He noticed. What? Still mad about the clocks? Come on, they were just things. You'll get over it. Just things? I kept my voice level. Gordon, do you understand what you did? He rolled his eyes. Yeah, Fred. I made $12,000 off your wife's dusty collection. Like I said, everything has a price. He leaned against the counter. Look, I'm not the bad guy here. I had debts. Real problems. You two are sitting pretty with this big house. Your pensions, your comfortable retirement. I needed help, and you weren't offering. So I helped myself. Trudy walked in then. She wouldn't look at us. Trudy? Vivian said softly. You really knew? You let him do this? Our daughter's jaw tightened. Mom, you don't understand. We have real bills. Real pressure. You and Dad are just living in the past with all your antiques and your stories. Maybe it's time you joined the real world. Those words hit harder than anything Gordon said. Vivian stood up slowly. The real world, she repeated. I see. She walked out. I heard her footsteps going upstairs, then her study door closing. Gordon smirked. She'll be fine. Old people are resilient, right? They lived through tougher times. I looked at this man, this stranger living in my house, eating my food, married to my daughter, and felt something shift inside me. The anger was still there, hot and sharp, but beneath it something colder formed, something patient. You're right, Gordon, I said quietly. We did live through tougher times. Learned a few things along the way. He laughed. Yeah? Like what? How to polish silver? How to write thank you notes? No, I said. How to recognize a snake, and how to handle one when it bites you. His smile faltered for just a second. Then he shook his head. Whatever, old man. Enjoy your hurt feelings. I'm going out. After he left, I found Vivian in her study. She was sitting at her desk, a large manila folder open in front of her. I recognized it immediately. Her documentation system. For every clock she'd ever purchased, she kept receipts, certificates of authenticity, appraisal letters, photographs. "I never throw anything away," she said without looking up. "Occupational hazard of being an archivist." I sat down across from her. "What are you thinking?" She looked at me then. Her eyes were dry now, but I saw something new in them. Determination. Purpose. "I'm thinking," she said carefully, "that Gordon made a mistake. A very big mistake." "What kind of mistake?" She pulled out a document. "These clocks are legally mine, purchased with my money, kept in my study. He had no right to sell them." "Else. Something Gordon doesn't know else. Something Gordon doesn't know about." "What?" She opened the folder. Inside were more documents. Older ones, yellowed with age. Legal papers with official seals. "Do you remember the Patek Philippe? The 1895 Swiss pocket watch? The one from your great-grandmother?" "Yes, my great-grandmother, Adele." Vivian's hands were steady now. "When she died, she left some things to my mother, including that watch. But there was something else. Something my mother told me to keep safe until I needed it." She pulled out a document and laid it on the desk between us. I looked down. It was a deed. A property deed for a house on Spruce Street. This house. "Wait," I said slowly. "This is my parents' will," she finished. "When they died 12 years ago, they left me this house. But I never officially registered it. I kept the deed hidden, kept paying the property taxes under their estate name. I wanted time to think about what to do with it, so I hid it somewhere safe." My brain caught up. "Inside the clock," she nodded. "Inside the Patek Philippe. There's a hidden compartment behind the movement. I put the deed there 5 years ago. Sealed it up. Never told anyone. Not even you. I'm sorry." "Don't apologize. But Vivian, if Gordon sold that clock, then he sold the proof that this house belongs to me. Not to him, not to Trudy, to me." She leaned back. "Gordon thinks he's so smart. Thinks he pulled one over on the dumb old people. But he just handed away the one thing that could have protected him." I felt a smile forming. "So, legally?" "Legally, I can claim ownership. Legally, I can tell him to leave." Her eyes met mine. "But Fred, I don't want to just kick him out. I want him to understand what he did. I want him to feel what I felt, that powerlessness, that violation." We sat there in silence for a moment, both thinking. "We need to be smart about this," I finally said. "Methodical." "Agreed. We need legal advice, someone who knows property law." "I was thinking the same thing," she said. "What about William Cox?" "William, my old friend from the auction house, now a lawyer specializing in family and property law. Smart, careful, trustworthy." "Good idea," I said. Vivian closed the folder. "Fred, I need you to understand something. I'm not doing this out of anger. Well, not just anger. I'm doing this because Gordon needs to learn that actions have consequences, that you can't just take from people and expect no response." I reached across the desk and took her hand. "We do this together, like everything else." She squeezed back. "Together." That night, I called William, explained the situation carefully, asked him to come by the next day when Gordon and Trudy were out. Before bed, Vivian and I stood in her study, looking at those empty shelves. "We'll get them back," I said. "Maybe," she replied. "But even if we don't, Gordon's going to wish he'd never touched them." I looked at my wife, this brilliant, patient, meticulous woman I'd loved for 45 years, and I realized something. Gordon had no idea what he'd started. He saw two old people, easy targets. He didn't see the archivist who never forgot a detail. He didn't see the auctioneer who'd built a career reading people and finding leverage. He'd robbed the wrong house, and now the clock was ticking on his time and ours. A week passed like slow poison. Vivian barely spoke to Gordon or Trudy. She moved through the house like a ghost, present but absent, there but not there. I watched her withdraw into herself, and it cut deeper than any of Gordon's words. But I also noticed something else, the way she studied them when they weren't looking, the way she made mental notes of every conversation, every movement. I played my role, the defeated old man who'd given up. I shuffled around, worked on my clock repairs in the basement, didn't argue when Gordon made jokes about finally learning to let go. "See, Fred," he said one morning, "life's easier when you stop clinging to the past." I just nodded. Let him think he'd won. The morning William Cox arrived, Gordon and Trudy had gone out. Some spa day Trudy insisted on booking. More money from the clocks, I assumed. William pulled into our driveway in his silver BMW, carrying his leather briefcase like it weighed nothing. He'd aged well. 66 now, silver hair perfectly combed, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Gordon made in a month. We'd known each other for 30 years, met when I appraised an estate he was handling. Vivian greeted him at the door. "William, thank you for coming." "Vivian, Fred." He shook our hands, his grip firm. "Let's talk." We sat in Vivian's study, those empty shelves a constant reminder. William spread Vivian's documentation across the desk. Receipts, certificates, photographs, purchase records. Everything organized by date, cross-referenced, immaculate. "Impressive," William said, examining each document. "Most people can't produce this kind of evidence." "I'm an archivist," Vivian said quietly. "It's what I do." William looked up. "Technically, Gordon committed theft. These clocks were purchased by you, registered in your name, stored in your private study. He had no legal right to sell them." "Can we press charges?" I asked. "You can, but—" William hesitated. "He's your son-in-law. This could destroy whatever's left of your relationship with Trudy. Are you prepared for that?" Vivian's jaw tightened. "He's already destroyed it." "Then yes," William said. "We can file a police report, pursue civil recovery, but court cases take time, months, maybe years." I felt my shoulders sag. Years. By then the money would be gone. Gordon would declare bankruptcy. We'd win on paper, but lose everything else. Vivian reached for my hand under the table. I looked at her. She gave the smallest shake of her head. "Wait," her eyes said. "There's more." The phone rang. It was on Vivian's desk, an old landline we kept for some reason. The caller ID showed a Virginia number. I almost didn't answer. "Hello? Mr. Wells? Frederick Wells?" The voice was warm, professional, with a slight southern accent. "Speaking. My name is Barton Green. I own an antique shop in Alexandria, Green's Timepieces. I'm calling because several days ago I purchased a collection of mechanical clocks from a young man who said he was your relative." My heart stopped. Vivian was watching me, her face pale. "Go on," I said carefully. "Well, sir," Barton cleared his throat, "I've been in this business 30 years. The moment that young man walked in, I knew something wasn't right. Too eager, too desperate. The price he wanted was far too low for the quality of these pieces. I see? But that's not why I'm calling." He paused. "Sir, we've found something inside one of the clocks. I think you need to come here, as soon as possible." Vivian stood up so fast her chair scraped the floor. She grabbed a pen, wrote on a notepad, "Patek Philippe." My mouth went dry. "Which clock?" "A Swiss Patek Philippe. 1895, if the markings are correct. Beautiful piece. When I opened it for restoration, there was a hidden compartment behind the movement mechanism. Inside," another pause. "Inside there's an envelope. I haven't opened it, but I can see it contains legal documents." Vivian's hand flew to her mouth. "Mr. Green," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "We'll be there. When can we come?" "I'm here until 6 this evening. Tomorrow I'm open from 10 to 5. I looked at William, then at Vivian. "We'll be there tomorrow morning." After I hung up, nobody spoke for a long moment. Finally, William said, "What's in the Patek Philippe, Vivian?" She sat back down slowly. Her hands were shaking. "Insurance," she whispered. "What kind of insurance?" She looked at me. In 45 years, I'd never seen that expression on her face. Fear mixed with hope, mixed with something else. Determination. "When my parents died 12 years ago," she began, "they left me some things. This house, some money, and documents. Legal documents I wasn't sure what to do with." "What documents?" I asked. "Their will? The deed to this house." She met my eyes. "The original deed signed over to me, but I never registered it. I kept it in a safe deposit box for years. Then," she gestured to the empty shelves, "I moved it. I sealed it inside the Patek Philippe, inside that hidden compartment. I thought it was the safest place." William leaned forward. "Vivian, are you saying—" "I'm saying," she interrupted, "that Gordon just sold the buyer proof that this house belongs to me. Not to him, not even jointly to Fred and me. Just me." The room went silent. William's eyes widened. Then slowly, he started to smile. Oh my. Oh, that changes everything. I looked at my wife, this quiet, meticulous woman who'd been keeping secrets, even from me, who'd planned for contingencies I never imagined, who'd hidden the deed to our house inside an antique clock. Why didn't you tell me? I asked softly. I was going to, she said. I wanted to be sure. I wanted to understand what it meant, legally, and then life happened, and I kept putting it off, and her voice cracked. I'm sorry. I pulled her close. Don't apologize. You just handed us the key to everything. If that deed is legitimate, William said, already pulling out his laptop, and if it's properly notarized, Gordon and Trudy are living in a house they have no legal claim to. Vivian nodded. You could evict them, William continued. I know. You could press criminal charges for the clocks and remove them from the property. I know. William looked between us. What do you want to do? Vivian stood and walked to the window. Outside, spring was turning Philadelphia green. Flowers blooming in our small garden. Flowers she'd planted, tended, loved. I want them to understand, she said quietly. I want Gordon to feel what I felt. That helplessness. That violation. I want him to know what it's like when someone takes everything you've built. And Trudy? William asked. Vivian's shoulders tensed. Trudy made her choice. I stood beside her. What's the plan? She turned to me. We don't rush. We don't yell. We get that deed. We register it. And then, her eyes were steel, we show them what happens when you underestimate people. William closed his laptop. I'll prepare the paperwork. Get that deed authenticated. Start building your case. After he left, Vivian and I sat together in the quiet. Tomorrow, I said, we get the deed. Tomorrow, she agreed. And then, she smiled, cold and sharp. Then Gordon learns that old people aren't as stupid as he thinks. The next morning, we left early. Told Gordon and Trudy we were visiting old friends in Virginia. Half true, technically. Green's Timepieces was in Alexandria, about 45 minutes south. Vivian was quiet during the drive, staring out the window, fingers drumming against her knee. Nervous? I asked. Terrified, she admitted. What if the envelope got damaged? What if... Vivian, I reached for her hand. Whatever happens, we face it together. She squeezed back. Together. Alexandria's old town was charming. Brick sidewalks, colonial-era buildings, trees everywhere. Green's Timepieces sat between a bookstore and a cafe on King Street. The sign was elegant, gold lettering on forest green. Through the window I could see dozens of clocks on the walls, all ticking at different rhythms. The door chimed when we entered. Barton Green looked exactly like he sounded. Mid-50s, warm brown eyes, wearing a vest and bow tie like he'd stepped out of another century. The shop smelled like oil and old wood and time. Mr. and Mrs. Wells? He came around the counter, hand extended. Barton Green, thank you for coming. Thank you for calling, Vivian said. He led us to the back room, a workshop cluttered with tools, gears, springs, half-disassembled timepieces. And there, spread across a large table, were Vivian's 37 clocks. She made a sound, half gasp, half sob, her collection. Every single piece, arranged carefully, respectfully. I cleaned them, Barton said gently. Minor maintenance. They're all in good condition. Whoever cared for these knew what they were doing. I did, Vivian whispered. I cared for them. Barton nodded slowly. I thought so. That young man, your relative, he didn't know what he had. He wanted $12,000. I paid it because these are worth at least $47,000. Probably more. He paused. I'm not in the business of taking advantage. If you want them back, we can work something out. I liked this man immediately. First, Vivian said, the envelope. Please. Barton picked up the Patek Philippe, a beautiful pocket watch, gold case, white enamel face, Roman numerals. He turned it over and carefully opened the back panel. Inside the mechanism, tucked into a space I'd never have noticed, was a slim, waterproof envelope. He handed it to Vivian. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside were 2 documents, exactly as she remembered. Her parents' will and the property deed to our house on Spruce Street. Both notarized, dated 12 years ago, perfectly preserved. I read over her shoulder. The deed was clear. The house transferred from Vivian's parents to Vivian Margaret Wells, upon their death. Current estimated value, $780,000. This is it, Vivian breathed. This is real. Barton watched us carefully. I don't mean to pry, but that young man, he didn't have permission to sell these, did he? No, I said. He didn't. I thought not. Barton crossed his arms. I can provide a written statement. Dates, times, condition of sale. I kept his contact information, the receipt, everything. You'd do that? Vivian asked. Ma'am, I've been a collector my whole life. I know what these pieces mean. They're not just objects. They're stories, memories, history. What he did. Barton shook his head. That's not right. I'll help however I can. We spent the next hour documenting everything. Barton photographed each clock, provided appraisals, wrote a detailed statement about Gordon's visit. He even offered to return the entire collection for what he'd paid, $12,000. That's too generous, I said. Perhaps. But I sleep better helping people than profiting from theft. He smiled. Besides, I already have more clocks than I know what to do with. By the time we left, the entire collection was packed carefully in boxes, loaded into our car. We had Barton's statement, his business card, his promise to testify if needed, and we had the deed. Vivian cried on the drive home. Not sad tears, something else. Relief, vindication, hope. We're really doing this, she said. We're really doing this. Gordon has no idea. I smiled. No, he really doesn't. We hid the clocks in my basement workshop, behind my restoration supplies, where Gordon never ventured. That evening, William came over again while Gordon and Trudy were out. Vivian laid out the deed on the kitchen table. William examined it with a jeweler's loupe, checking signatures, seals, dates. It's legitimate, he finally said. Original notary seal. Proper witnesses. Your parents' signatures match their other legal documents. He looked up. This is enforceable. What's our next step? I asked. William pulled out a legal pad, started writing. First, we file this deed with the Philadelphia County Recorder of Deeds. That makes your ownership official and public record. Takes about 3 weeks. And then you own this house outright. Gordon and Trudy are legal tenants at best, though they've never paid rent, so technically they're guests. He tapped his pen. You can give them notice to vacate. 60 days is standard in Pennsylvania. Vivian leaned forward. And the clocks? Separate issue. We file a police report for theft. We also send Gordon a formal legal demand. Return the clocks or pay their appraised value, $47,300. William smiled. He can't return them because you already have them, and he can't pay because he's broke. That puts him in civil violation. Perfect, Vivian said softly. But, William held up a hand. We need to be strategic. If we hit him with everything at once, he might run. Better to do this in stages. Let him think he has time. Vivian and I looked at each other. A whole conversation happened in that glance. Stages, she agreed. We're patient. Over the next 2 weeks, we became actors in our own home. Vivian stayed quiet, subdued. I puttered around, played the defeated old man. Gordon grew more confident, more careless. One night at dinner, he actually said, You know, Fred, I think losing those clocks was good for you. You're both more relaxed now, less cluttered. I just smiled. You might be right, Gordon. Trudy barely looked at us anymore. Too busy on her phone, posting pictures of her perfect life for strangers who didn't know her marriage was built on theft and lies. Meanwhile, William filed the deed, submitted all the paperwork, paid the fees, got everything notarized and certified. Vivian and I worked together every evening after Gordon and Trudy went to bed. She organized files while I researched Pennsylvania property law. We made lists, timelines, action plans. We were methodical, thorough. 2.5 weeks after our trip to Alexandria, the confirmation came. The deed was registered. The house at 1247 Spruce Street officially belonged to Vivian Margaret Wells. We celebrated quietly in our bedroom. A bottle of wine, just the two of us. Phase 1 complete, Vivian said, raising her glass. Phase 1 complete, I echoed. Next, we let Gordon know he made a mistake. A very expensive mistake, she smiled, not the warm smile I'd loved for 45 years, but something colder, sharper. I want him to feel it, every step, every consequence. He will, I promised. We'll make sure of it. The next morning, William sent Gordon the first letter, a formal legal demand regarding the stolen clocks. Certified mail, signature required. We didn't tell Gordon it was coming. We just waited. 3 days later, he came home from work and found the envelope. I was in my workshop when I heard him explode upstairs. What the hell is this? Vivian's voice calm and cold. It's exactly what it says, Gordon. You're suing me? Your own son-in-law? You stole from me. We want our property back. I sold them. They're gone. Then pay the appraised value, $47,300. Silence. Then, I don't have that kind of money. That's unfortunate, Vivian said. You should have thought of that before you stole them. I walked upstairs slowly. Gordon was in the kitchen, face red, the letter crumpled in his fist. Trudy stood behind him, looking scared. This is insane, Gordon said when he saw me. You can't sue family. We can, I said calmly, and we are. I'll fight this. I'll get a lawyer. You should, Vivian interrupted. Get a lawyer. See what they tell you. She turned and walked away, leaving Gordon sputtering. That night, Vivian and I sat on our bed, door locked, speaking in low voices. He's panicking, I said. Good. She pulled out her folder, our master plan, weeks of work, every contingency mapped out. Let him panic, let him scramble, and when he's exhausted, we hit him with the deed. She closed the folder and looked at me. In her eyes I saw what I felt. Determination, justice, maybe a touch of satisfaction. They thought we were weak, she said. Old, easy targets. They were wrong. Very wrong, she smiled. I almost feel bad for them. Almost? Almost. Outside, I heard Gordon on the phone, probably trying to find a cheap lawyer who'd take his case. Let him try. We had documentation, witnesses, evidence. We had time, patience, strategy. We had everything he didn't. Preparation, truth, and 45 years of being a team. Gordon thought he'd won by stealing 37 clocks. He had no idea he'd just lost everything. Barton Green insisted on walking us to the car. All 37 clocks were packed carefully in padded boxes, stacked in our trunk like precious cargo, which they were. You're sure about this? I asked him one more time. The written statement. He handed me an envelope. Already prepared. Detailed account of the sale, the suspicious circumstances, everything. If you need me to testify, I will. Vivian shook his hand. Thank you. You didn't have to do any of this. Mrs. Wells, he said gently, I've been in this business 30 years. I know the difference between someone selling their collection and someone fencing stolen goods. Your son-in-law was the latter. We drove home in silence for the first 20 minutes. Then Vivian spoke. They can't know yet. I know. We take the clocks to the basement, hide them in my workroom, lock the door. Agreed. I glanced at her. You okay? She touched the envelope with the deed inside. I'm better than okay, Fred. For the first time in 2 weeks, I feel like I can breathe. We got home around 6. Gordon's car was gone. Probably another sales meeting that would end at a bar. Trudy was upstairs, door closed. We moved quickly, carrying boxes down to Vivian's restoration workroom in the basement. Within an hour, all 37 clocks were safely hidden behind locked doors. That evening, William came over. We sat in the kitchen. Gordon and Trudy were both out, and spread everything across the table. The deed, the will, Barton's statement, Vivian's meticulous documentation. William studied each document carefully. Then he looked up, a slight smile on his face. This is airtight, absolutely airtight. Walk us through it, Vivian said. She had her notebook out, pen ready. Always the archivist. William laid out 3 documents. First, we register the will and deed with the county court. Takes about 3 weeks. Once that's done, the house is legally yours, Vivian. Not joint property, not in Fred's name. Yours alone. Second, I asked, we file a police report about the stolen clocks. Barton's statement establishes that Gordon sold property that wasn't his to sell. That's theft, pure and simple. And third, William pulled out a blank legal form. We send Gordon a formal demand letter. Return the clocks or pay their appraised value. When he can't do either, and he won't be able to, we have grounds for a civil lawsuit. Vivian tapped her pen against the notebook. I want him to feel it slowly, not all at once. I recognized that tone. She was thinking strategy, not emotion. Explain, William said. If we hit him with everything at once, he'll panic and run. Or worse, he'll get clever. She looked at me. Fred, you've seen it at auctions. When someone realizes they're losing, what do? They either fold immediately or they double down stupid. Exactly. Gordon will double down. She turned back to William. I want the demand letter first. Let him think it's just about the clocks. Let him hire some cheap lawyer. Let him think he can fight us on that front. William nodded slowly. And while he's focused on the clocks, we quietly register the house. Vivian's eyes were sharp. By the time he realizes the real problem, it'll be too late. I felt a surge of admiration for my wife. 45 years, and she could still surprise me. One more thing, she added. I want to act like we've given up, resigned, defeated. William raised an eyebrow. You want to play possum? Exactly. She closed her notebook. Gordon thinks we're weak. Let him keep thinking that. Let him get comfortable, arrogant. Then we strike, I finished. She smiled at me. Then we strike. William left around 10 with all the documents he needed to start the legal process. Vivian and I cleaned up the kitchen together, moving around each other in that comfortable rhythm that comes from decades of partnership. You really think this will work? I asked. I know it will. She dried the last glass. Gordon made a critical mistake, Fred. He underestimated us because we're old. He thinks age makes us weak. Instead, it made us patient, and careful, and thorough. She put the glass away. He played a short game. We're playing a long one. The next morning at breakfast, I tested our new strategy. Gordon came down late, looking rumpled. Coffee's fresh, I said mildly. He grunted, poured himself a cup. Trudy joined him, checking her phone. I cleared my throat. Listen, about the clocks. Gordon looked up, wary. Vivian and I have been talking. We're not going to pursue it. His wariness turned to surprise, then satisfaction. Really? What's done is done, I said, putting every ounce of defeated resignation I could muster into my voice. We're too old to fight about it, too tired. Vivian appeared in the doorway. She'd heard me, knew her cue. We just want peace in our home. The smile that crossed Gordon's face made my stomach turn. Pure, smug victory. That's very mature of you both, he said, in a tone you'd use with children. I'm glad you're seeing reason. Trudy looked relieved. Thanks, Mom. Dad. That night in bed, Vivian whispered, Did you see his face? Like a cat with cream. Good. Let him enjoy it while it lasts. 3 weeks later, the registered letter arrived. Vivian got to it first. She'd been watching the mail like a hawk. When I came down for breakfast, she was sitting at the kitchen table, a single envelope in front of her, official seal of the Philadelphia County Court. She looked up at me. Her eyes were bright. It's done, she said quietly. The house is mine. I sat down across from her. For a moment, we just looked at each other. Then, without a word, I reached across the table. She took my hand. 45 years of marriage, thousands of mornings at this table. And now, this house, her childhood home, her parents' legacy, was finally, officially, legally hers. Phase 1 complete, I said. Phase 2 starts today. She squeezed my hand. William files the police report this afternoon. The demand letter goes out tomorrow. And Gordon? She smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. Gordon is about to have a very bad week. The month that followed was a masterclass in controlled chaos. William moved like a precision instrument, filing reports, sending letters, building our case brick by brick. Meanwhile, Vivian and I maintained our facade of defeated resignation. Gordon didn't disappoint. He got cockier. One night at dinner, he announced, Trudy and I are thinking about Miami, a week at a resort. We deserve it after all the stress lately. Sounds nice, Vivian said neutrally. Yeah, well, we earned it, he smirked. Sometimes you have to be willing to make tough calls to get what you want in life, right, Fred? I bit my tongue and nodded. But the real moment came 2 weeks later. Gordon was on his phone in the living room, loud enough for us to hear. Yeah, the old folks finally gave up. I know, right? Easier than I thought. No, they're total pushovers. Living here rent-free, and they're just grateful we tolerate them. Vivian was in the kitchen with me. I saw her grip the counter. Breathe, I whispered. He thinks we're grateful to tolerate us. In my house. Not for long. She took a slow breath, released the counter. You're right. Not for long. The next morning, the registered letter arrived. I was in my workshop when I heard Gordon shout from upstairs. Not anger, something else. Shock, maybe. Confusion. I climbed the stairs slowly. Vivian was already in the hallway, face carefully neutral. Gordon stood in the foyer, holding an official-looking envelope. His face had gone pale. What is this? His voice was tight. I don't know, Gordon, Vivian said calmly. What is it? He ripped it open, pulled out the letter. His eyes scanned the page. I watched the color drain further from his face. This says I stole the clocks. This says you're filing charges. Not charges, Vivian corrected. A civil complaint and a demand for restitution. His hands started shaking. Actually shaking. $47,000? Are you insane? Those clocks weren't worth... According to the independent appraisal, I interrupted. That's exactly what they're worth. We had an expert examine them before you sold them. That was a lie, but a useful one. Let him think we'd been planning this all along. You said you were letting it go. His voice rose. You said... We said we wanted peace, Vivian said. We do. But peace doesn't mean letting theft go unpunished. Trudy came running down the stairs. What's going on? Gordon, why are you shouting? He thrust the letter at her. She read it, face crumpling. Mom? Dad? What is this? Your husband stole my property and sold it. I'm asking for it back, or compensation for its value. That's not unreasonable. We don't have $47,000? Trudy's voice was shrill. You know we don't. Then perhaps Gordon should have thought of that before he sold things that didn't belong to him. Gordon's shock was morphing into rage now. You want to play lawyer? Fine, I'll get a lawyer too. A real one, and we'll fight this. That's your right, William said. We all turned. None of us had heard him come in. Vivian had given him a key for exactly this moment. William stood in the doorway, briefcase in hand, looking every inch the experienced attorney he was. William Cox, he introduced himself to Gordon. I'm representing the Welleses in this matter. You're welcome to retain counsel. In fact, I'd recommend it. Gordon's face was doing interesting things. Red patches were appearing on his pale skin. You planned this. All of it. We responded to a crime, William said mildly. If that required planning, well, yes, we planned. I looked at Vivian. She looked back. The slightest smile touched her lips. Gordon saw it. You think this is funny? You think you're so smart, you old... Careful, I said quietly. Choose your next words very carefully, Gordon. Something in my tone stopped him. For 40 years I'd stood at auction podiums, commanding rooms full of people, reading their tells, knowing exactly when to push and when to wait. I use that voice now. Gordon's mouth snapped shut. You have 30 days to respond to the demand, William continued. I'd suggest you use that time wisely. Find a lawyer. Review your options. Because Mrs. Wells has documentation for every single clock. Receipts, provenance, photographs. She even has a witness to the circumstances of the sale. What witness? The man you sold them to. Barton Green. He's prepared to testify that you seemed nervous, rushed, and undervalued the collection significantly. In his professional opinion, you were clearly selling stolen property. Gordon looked like he might be sick. This is... You can't. We're family. Family doesn't steal, Vivian said. Her voice was soft, but it cut like a blade. Family doesn't mock. Family doesn't call their elders old friends with contempt while robbing them blind. I'll fight this, Gordon said, but the fight had gone out of his voice. I'll find a lawyer, and I'll fight. Please do, William said. It'll make the case more interesting. After William left, Gordon disappeared into the bedroom. We heard him on the phone, voice rising and falling. Trudy sat on the stairs, crying quietly. That night, Vivian and I sat in her study, the room where the clocks had been stolen from, the room where this had all started. He has no idea, does he? I said. About the house? She shook her head. Not yet. He's too focused on the money. When do we tell him? We don't. We let the court tell him. She pulled out a calendar, marked a date 5 weeks away. William says the house registration will be public record by then. Gordon will probably find out when he tries to use the address for something official. Or when we serve him with eviction notice. That too? I leaned back in my chair. You know what the best part is? What? He did this to himself, every bit of it. We're just following through. She came around the desk, perched on the arm of my chair. I put my arm around her waist. Fred? Yeah? Thank you. For standing with me. For not saying I was overreacting or that we should just let it go because they're family. I looked up at her. Viv, you're my family. First, last, always. Trudy is our daughter, but you're my partner. When someone hurts you, they hurt me. She leaned down, kissed my forehead. 45 years, and you still know exactly what to say. 45 years, and you still surprise me with how brilliant you are. We sat there for a while, in the quiet study, holding each other. Outside, we heard Gordon's voice, still on the phone, still trying to find a way out of the trap he'd built for himself. The clocks in the basement ticked on, counting down the seconds until justice arrived. Gordon hired Bradley Stone 3 days after receiving the demand letter. I'd heard of Stone, young, cheap, hungry for clients. He worked out of a shared office space in South Philly, took cases other lawyers wouldn't touch. Perfect for Gordon's budget and desperation. William called me the morning after Stone sent his response letter. I could hear the amusement in his voice. Fred, you need to see this. Come by my office. When Vivian and I arrived, William handed us Stone's letter. It was aggressive, full of legal jargon, and completely ignorant of Pennsylvania property law. He claimed the clocks were marital assets, subject to family use doctrine, a doctrine that didn't exist. He's bluffing, William said, hoping you'll settle to avoid court. Vivian looked at me. We're not settling. No, I agreed. We're not. The preliminary hearing was scheduled 3 weeks later. Judge Phyllis Harrison presiding, a woman in her early 60s with a reputation for cutting through nonsense like a hot knife through butter. The morning of the hearing, Vivian and I dressed carefully. She wore her navy suit, the one she'd worn to important museum events. I wore my best charcoal gray. We looked like what we were, serious people who'd been wronged. Gordon and Trudy arrived separately. Gordon wore an ill-fitting suit, probably borrowed. Trudy looked like she hadn't slept in days. Bradley Stone swaggered in like he owned the place. William just smiled. Judge Harrison called us to order. Stone spoke first, his voice loud and confident. Your Honor, this is a family dispute being weaponized by 2 elderly individuals seeking revenge against their daughter and son-in-law. The clocks in question were kept in a common area of the family home, used and enjoyed by all residents. Counselor, Judge Harrison interrupted, were the clocks purchased by your client? Well, no, but did your client have permission to sell them? Stone hesitated. The clocks were in his home. He had reasonable belief. That's not what I asked. The judge turned to William. Counselor Cox? William stood, calm and prepared. He presented Vivian's documentation. Receipts, certificates of authenticity, photographs dated over 10 years. Every single clock purchased in Vivian's name, with her money, stored in her personal study. Then he called Barton Green. Barton testified clearly. Gordon had been nervous, rushed. He'd sold the collection for $12,000, far below market value. When Barton questioned the sale, Gordon had said, They're just old people. They won't even notice. I watched Gordon's face go white. William presented bank records showing Gordon's $12,000 deposit, followed immediately by withdrawals at Atlantic City casinos, all within 48 hours. Gambling debts, William said quietly. Mr. Pierce stole valuable property to pay off gambling debts. Judge Harrison looked at Gordon for a long moment, then at Stone. Counselor, does your client have the clocks? No, Your Honor, but can he return them? Stone shuffled papers. The clocks were sold in good faith. They were stolen, the judge said flatly. Sold without the owner's permission, that's theft. She turned to Gordon. Mr. Pierce, you have 30 days to return the stolen property or pay its appraised value of $47,300. Gordon stood up, panicked. Your Honor, I don't have... Then you should have thought of that before you stole your mother-in-law's property. She banged her gavel. 30 days. Next case. Outside the courtroom, Gordon grabbed Trudy's arm. This is insane. They're your parents. Talk to them. But Trudy pulled away. She looked at us and then at him. Maybe you shouldn't have taken the clocks, she said quietly. It was the first time she'd questioned him. I saw the crack forming. That evening, Vivian and I sat on our porch. The summer air was warm, the street quiet. He's panicking, she said. Good. He still doesn't know about the house, I smiled. No, he doesn't. When do we tell him? I thought about it. We don't. We let him find out the same way he let you find out about the clocks. Suddenly, with no warning. She looked at me, and in her eyes I saw the same cold satisfaction I felt. Perfect, she said. 2 weeks passed. Gordon scrambled, trying to find the money. He sold his watch, his golf clubs, tried to take out a loan. All rejected. His credit was destroyed. The deadline came. He had nothing. Judge Harrison issued her final ruling. Judgment in favor of Vivian Wells. Gordon Pierce ordered to pay $47,300 plus court costs. Lien placed on any assets. Gordon had no assets, except what he thought was his home. The next morning, William arrived at our house at 9. Gordon was at work, Trudy at her salon. We sat in the kitchen, me, Vivian, and William, with the registered deed spread before us. It's time, Vivian said. William pulled out the eviction notice. 60 days to vacate the premises. Legal, proper, irrefutable. How do you want to do this? He asked. Vivian's answer was immediate. I want to tell them together. Both of them. I want them to see our faces when they realize what they've lost. That evening we waited. Gordon came home first, tie loosened, looking exhausted. Trudy arrived 20 minutes later. We called them into the living room. Sit down, Vivian said. We need to talk. Gordon sat on the edge of the couch, suspicious. Trudy next to him, anxious. William stood by the doorway, briefcase in hand. I stayed standing. So did Vivian. We'd planned this. You owe Vivian $47,000, I said. The court ruled in her favor. I know that, Gordon snapped. I'm working on it. I just need time. Time, Vivian repeated softly. You needed time. We gave you 30 days. You gambled it away in Atlantic City. I can get a loan. William stepped forward, pulled a document from his briefcase. The official deed, registered with the county, bearing the seal of Philadelphia. Mr. Pierce, Mrs. Pierce, he said formally. This house at 1247 Spruce Street is legally owned by Vivian Margaret Wells. It was left to her by her parents 12 years ago. The deed was registered 6 weeks ago. Gordon stared. What? William handed him the document. Gordon's hands shook as he read it. The color drained from his face. This can't be real. We've lived here 2 years. You never said? I never had to, Vivian said. Her voice was steel. It's my house. It's always been my house. But you let us live here? I did. She stepped closer. I gave you a home when you needed one. I fed you. I trusted you. Her voice dropped. And you repaid me by stealing my mother's legacy and calling me an old friend while you did it. Gordon turned to me, desperate. Fred, this is crazy. You can't do this. I can't, I said calmly. But Vivian can. It's her house. He looked at the deed again, then at William. There has to be a mistake. Some legal error? There's no error, William said. I've been practicing property law for 35 years. This deed is airtight. The title search is clean. Your mother-in-law owns this house free and clear. We can fight this. Gordon stood up, the document crumpling in his fist. We have rights. Squatters' rights, or... You were guests, William interrupted. Guests who overstayed their welcome. Pennsylvania law is very clear. The owner can ask you to leave with 60 days' notice. He handed Gordon another document. This is that notice. I watched Gordon read it, watched reality sink in. His face went through a whole range of emotions, shock, anger, fear, desperation. Then he tried one last thing. He turned to Trudy. Tell them we're family. They can't do this to family. But Trudy was crying. She looked at her mother with something I hadn't seen in months. Actual remorse. Mom, she whispered, I'm sorry. I didn't know about the house. I swear I didn't know. But you knew about the clocks, Vivian said. You stood there and watched him mock us. You said nothing. I was wrong. Trudy stood up, tears streaming. I was so wrong. I just wanted Gordon to be happy, and he kept saying you didn't appreciate things, that you were wasting money on old junk, and I believed him. She turned to Gordon. I believed you. Gordon grabbed her arm. Trudy, don't. She yanked free. Don't what? Don't tell the truth? That you convinced me my parents were the problem? That you made me choose between you and them? I gave you everything, Gordon shouted. You gave me debt, she screamed back. You gave me shame. You made me an accomplice to stealing from my own mother. The room went silent. Even Gordon seemed shocked. Vivian watched her daughter for a long moment. Then she spoke, and her voice held the faintest warmth. Trudy, you have a choice now. The same choice you had before, but this time, I hope you'll choose differently. Trudy wiped her eyes. What choice? You can leave with Gordon. Find an apartment. Continue as you are, or... Vivian paused. You can acknowledge what happened. Truly acknowledge it, and we can talk. Later. After everything settles. I saw Trudy's face change. Hope. Fragile and desperate. Gordon saw it too. Trudy, don't listen to them. They're manipulating you. Like you manipulated me? She asked quietly. He had no answer. That night, after William left, after Gordon stormed upstairs and Trudy retreated to the guest room, Vivian and I stood in her study. The empty shelves where the clocks had been. Tomorrow we'd bring them back up from the basement, put them in their rightful places. He'll fight the eviction, I said. Let him try. She turned to me. We have the law. We have the truth. We have time. I pulled her close. You know what my father used to say? Tell me. Never underestimate people who've survived more than you have. They didn't just survive, they learned. She smiled against my shoulder. Gordon's learning now. Expensive education, the best kind. From upstairs, we heard Gordon on the phone, probably calling Bradley Stone, trying to find some way out. Some loophole, some argument, some magic solution. But there wasn't one. We'd checked every angle, prepared for every contingency. Vivian and I had played the long game. Patient, methodical, thorough. And now, watching Gordon scramble and panic, and finally understand what he'd done, I felt no guilt, only justice. 60 days, Vivian said softly. 60 days, I agreed, and then our house would be ours again, empty of betrayal, empty of contempt. Just us, and the clocks, and all the time in the world. The 60-day countdown became Gordon's personal nightmare. I watched it unfold with a cold satisfaction I'd never felt before. Vivian and I sat at the kitchen table each morning, drinking coffee, watching him spiral. Day 58, Gordon tried to get a loan, rejected. His credit score was demolished. Day 55, he listed his Audi Q5 for sale. Problem was he owed more on it than it was worth. No buyers. Day 49, Trudy came home crying. The boutique had let her go. They said they don't want drama associated with their brand, she sobbed to Gordon. He didn't comfort her. He just stared at his phone, scrolling through apartment listings they couldn't afford. Day 37, I found Gordon in the living room at 2 a.m, surrounded by papers. Financial statements, loan applications, credit card bills. He looked up when I entered. I know you're enjoying this, he said bitterly. No, Gordon, I sat down across from him. I'm not enjoying it. I'm satisfied by it. There's a difference. What difference? Enjoyment is cheap. Satisfaction is earned. And Vivian and I earned this. He went back to his papers. I went back to bed where Vivian was awake, reading. How is he? She asked. Drowning. She nodded. Good. Day 28. Gordon finally found a place. A cramped apartment in northeast Philadelphia, 45 minutes from Center City. 1 bedroom, thin walls, no parking. The landlord wanted first month, last month, and security deposit. Gordon scraped it together by borrowing from 3 different friends. We're moving there? Trudy asked when he showed her photos. Unless you have a better idea, he snapped. She didn't say anything, just went to her room and closed the door. Day 14. The moving truck arrived. Vivian and I watched from the porch as Gordon and Trudy loaded their belongings. Furniture they'd bought on credit. Clothes neither of them could really afford. The detritus of a life built on borrowed time and stolen trust. Trudy kept looking back at the house, at us. Her eyes were red, but she wasn't crying anymore. She'd run out of tears somewhere around day 30. Gordon didn't look at us once. Day 7. Gordon tried one last time. He came to the kitchen where Vivian and I were making dinner together. We moved around each other with practiced ease. She chopped vegetables while I stirred the sauce. a dance perfected over 45 years. I need to say something, Gordon said. We both stopped, looked at him. He sat down heavily. His face was haggard, older than his 38 years. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean anything now, but I am. I made a terrible mistake. I thought... He swallowed. I thought you were just old people sitting on valuable things you didn't appreciate. I thought I was smarter than you. I thought I could take what I needed and you'd just accept it. Vivian dried her hands slowly. And now? Now I know I was wrong. About everything. He looked at her directly. Those clocks meant something to you. I see that now. And this house, it's your family's legacy. I had no right. Silence filled the kitchen, just the bubbling of the sauce on the stove. Then Vivian spoke, and her voice was ice. Gordon, do you know what hurt the most? Not the theft, not even the disrespect. It was that phrase you used. Old friends. You said it with such contempt. Like we were already dead, already irrelevant, already nothing but obstacles between you and money. I didn't mean, yes, you did? I stepped forward. We gave you a home. We fed you. We trusted you. And you used that trust as a weapon against us. He looked down. I know. I don't think you do, Vivian said, because if you truly understood, you would have come to us that first day, admitted what you'd done, begged forgiveness. Instead, you doubled down. You mocked us. You enjoyed your victory. What do you want me to say? His voice cracked. Nothing, I said. There's nothing left to say. He sat there for another moment, then stood. Trudy wants to stay. She thinks maybe you'll forgive her eventually. Maybe, Vivian said. Someday if she earns it. And me? I met his eyes. You're not welcome in this house ever again. Not for holidays, not for birthdays, not ever. The moment you sold those clocks, you stopped being family. His jaw tightened. For a second I thought he might argue. Instead, he just nodded. I'll tell Trudy. Day 0 arrived on a cold morning in late October. Gordon loaded the last box into a rented truck. Trudy stood on the sidewalk, torn between her husband and her parents. She'd barely spoken to any of us for days. Vivian stepped out onto the porch. I followed. Trudy, she called. Our daughter turned, hope flickering in her eyes. You have a choice, Vivian said. You've always had a choice. Choose wisely this time. Trudy looked at Gordon, at us, at the house she'd grown up in. Then she got into the truck. As they drove away, Vivian's hand found mine. We stood there watching until the truck disappeared around the corner. Did we do the right thing? She asked quietly. I squeezed her hand. We did the only thing. Justice isn't always gentle, but it's always necessary. She'll be back. I know. And Gordon won't. We went inside. The house felt different, lighter, like a weight had been lifted. That evening, we brought the clocks up from the basement, all 37 of them. Vivian placed each one carefully on the shelves in her study, exactly where they'd been before. When the last clock was in place, she stepped back and looked at them. The collection was complete again. Whole. They're home, she whispered. I put my arm around her. So are we. 3 months passed like a held breath slowly released. Vivian and I fell back into our rhythm. Morning coffee on the porch. Afternoon walks through Rittenhouse Square. Evenings in her study, surrounded by the gentle ticking of 37 clocks, each one marking time in its own mechanical voice. We didn't talk about Gordon, didn't wonder what happened to him. He'd made his choices. We'd made ours. But Trudy was different. It was a December evening, cold and sharp, when the phone rang. Vivian answered. Mom? Trudy's voice was small, broken. Mom, Can I talk to you? I watched Vivian's face carefully, saw the war between hurt and hope. I'm listening, Vivian said. Gordon left. 2 weeks ago, took everything he could sell and went to Nevada. Said he was going to start fresh. Said I was... Her voice cracked. Said I was holding him back. Vivian looked at me. I moved closer, put my hand on her shoulder. Where are you? Vivian asked. Still in that apartment. I can't afford it alone. I lost my job. I have nothing. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I chose him over you, and I was wrong. I've been wrong about everything. She was crying now, really crying. I don't deserve your help. I know that. but I don't know what else to do. Vivian closed her eyes. I saw the pain there, the love, the anger, all tangled together. "Let me talk to your father," she said. "I'll call you back." She hung up. We stood there in the kitchen, the same kitchen where this had all begun months ago. "What do you think?" she asked. "I think she's our daughter. She stood by and let him hurt us?" "She did." I pulled her close. "But she was manipulated. Weak, yes. Foolish, absolutely. But not cruel. Not like him. If she comes back, we set boundaries," I finished. "Clear ones. No tolerance for disrespect. No free rides. She earns her way back into our trust." Vivian leaned against me. "When did you become so wise?" "I married a woman who taught me that patience and planning beat anger every time." She smiled despite herself. We talked for hours that night. Debated. Discussed. Finally decided. Vivian called Trudy back. "You can come home. But on these conditions, you get a job within 2 weeks. You pay $200 a month in rent. You see a therapist weekly. And most importantly, you rebuild our trust one day at a time. No shortcuts. No excuses." "Yes," Trudy said immediately. "Yes to all of it. Thank you. Thank you so much." "Don't thank us yet," I added, taking the phone. "You broke something precious, Trudy. Your mother's heart. Mine too. It takes a long time to repair that kind of damage." "I know, Dad. I'll do whatever it takes." "Good. Because this is your last chance. There won't be another." She moved back in 5 days later, knocked on the door like a stranger, even though she had a key. When Vivian opened it, Trudy just stood there, crying. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, "for everything, for not standing up for you, for believing his lies, for being so selfish and stupid." And Vivian pulled her into a hug, not a long one, not a forgive everything one, but a start. "Come inside," she said. "It's cold." Over the following weeks, something remarkable happened. Trudy changed, not dramatically, not overnight, but steadily. She found work at a different boutique, smaller, less glamorous, but honest work. She paid her rent on time every month. She went to therapy every Tuesday. And slowly, gradually, she became someone I recognized, the daughter I remembered from before Gordon. One evening in late December, as the year wound down, the three of us sat in Vivian's study. The clocks ticked around us, a chorus of mechanical heartbeats. Trudy looked at the collection, tears in her eyes. "I still can't believe he sold these. They're beautiful." "They're more than beautiful," Vivian said. "They're memory. This one," she touched a gold pocket watch, "your grandfather gave me when I graduated college. This one, a German mantel clock. Your father and I bought on our honeymoon in Bavaria. Each one has a story." "Tell me," Trudy said softly. "I want to know all the stories I never asked about." And Vivian did, for hours, while I watched my wife and daughter rebuild what had been broken, one story at a time. Later, after Trudy had gone to bed, Vivian and I stood in the study alone. "We did it," she said, looking at the clocks. "We did. Not just got justice, we got our daughter back. And we did it together." I pulled her close. Like everything else, she looked up at me, this woman I'd loved for 45 years. "You know what I realized?" "What?" "Those clocks didn't save us. We saved ourselves. The clocks just reminded us that we had something worth fighting for. Time. Memory. Each other." I kissed her forehead. "The clocks also reminded us that time doesn't stop. It keeps moving forward, and we can choose what we do with it. No more wasting it on people who don't value us," she agreed, "but spending it freely on those who do." We stood there, surrounded by ticking clocks, each one marking seconds, minutes, hours. Time passing, time enduring, time continuing forward. Gordon was gone, somewhere in Nevada, still running from his mistakes. Trudy was here, facing hers, trying to do better. And Vivian and I, we were exactly where we'd always been. Together, stronger than ever. Proof that 45 years of partnership, of trust, of being a true team, that was worth more than any theft could destroy. The clocks kept ticking. Our story kept going. Because time doesn't stop for anyone. It just keeps moving forward. And so do we. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.